Is it really?
Namaste. Welcome to another edition of Navimash podcast. So we just finished our previous live stream, and we are back with you with one more live stream where we're going to talk about Savarkar and Tilak. Okay. What they stood for, what are their differences. But before we start our stream, let's first appreciate. Okay, we have two members who have joined us today. So we really appreciate their support for us. So we have Abhay Agarwal joined as member, and we also have Anonymous Hindu who also joined us as members. So we really appreciate your support, and do join us for our discussions where you'll able to join and talk to our guests. So thank you very much for your support. Now over to our discussion. So today we're going to discuss Savarkar, the idealist, and Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the realist, in terms of Hindutva ideology and how they saw Hindutva as a political force. So we have today Neenar. Neenar is a regular guest in our programs, and we also have Rishi. So both of them are going to talk about. So if I'm correct, Rishi is going to talk about Tilak's perspective on Hindutva and Hindutva politics, and we will have Neenar talk about Savarkar's perspective on Hindutva itself. So, welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining and sharing time with us. So now I will now hand it over to Rishi to actually start the stream, and then he will start the stream, and then we will start our conversation on Savarkar versus Tilak. Over to you, Rishi.
Namaste, Dada. Thank you so much. And Namaste, Nenar. And greetings to all of the guests. Last time we discussed because of the occasion of Tilak's birth anniversary last week, we got together to ask about what were the economic views of Tilak, and it was an interesting discussion. But today it will be a bit more juicier, if you could say so, because we'll be discussing some of the social issues and political views vis-a-vis various communal issues of Tilak, and we will be comparing that with what Savarkar envisaged. And given Savarkar is seen as a successor of Tilak, we will get to know various differences and also similarities within their approach. Nainer will be representing the Savarkarite view, and I will be narrating and also giving some more inputs on what Tilak's views were. Over to you, Nainer.
Namaste to all the viewers. Uh, so yeah, I have just as Rishi explained, he will be mainly explaining the point of view of Tilak, and I will try to put my points as from what I know about Savarkar on the same issues. So the various issues that we will cover is usually about the ideological differences, where they stand together and where they exactly differ. So yes, we can continue from there.
Okay, Anina, can you just upload the document that we have so that we can share the content
Yeah,
with the audience
I
as
was
well?
trying to do that.
Do you want me to do that?
I think it should be there now for just 2 seconds. Oh, it's
Okay,
showing
yeah,
still uploading.
yeah. Okay, no issues. That's fine. Yeah, it is
Now it
there
should be there.
now. Yeah, it's there. Go ahead. You can start the program. I'll be mute for the time being. Till then, you can continue, both of you.
Yeah, I'll read this. So, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, born 23rd July 1856. His father's name was Gangadhar Pant Tilak. Mother was Parvati Bai, and his location is in Ratnagiri. His childhood life in brief. Originally named Keshav, but later Bal became the name. When he was enrolled in an English school in age 10, he lost his mother, but he had become by then proficient in two subjects, especially mathematics and Sanskrit. He lost his father by the age of 16, but given by then he was in Pune and due to care from his parents, he developed a good base for his further education. By then, under his uncle's guardianship, he completed his LLB degree and stayed in hostels. If I'm correct, he had studied in Bombay or somewhere. Uh,
No, he studied in Pune, actually.
Pune, no? Okay, okay.
Mm. Deccan College.
Right, right. And later he founded Ferguson College.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Yeah. After that,
By the
he
way,
became, yeah,
yeah, for all the audiences, this portion which Niner will read, there is not much to discuss. So be patient and we'll get to the juicier stuff. Yes, Nina, over to you.
yeah. We are just setting a starting point as to so people can know what his background was and everything.
Absolutely.
So by then, under his uncle's guardianship, he completed his LLB degree and stayed in hostels. After that, he became teacher at New English School, but his uncle remained as his refuge even then. Observations while studying. While getting educated in Deccan College, he was able to notice something sinister ongoing, especially which reflected in the leadership class of the society, especially. So, I think we can zoom out on this. So, I'll read that excerpt that is here. Tilak
Yes, yes,
himself once
please.
spoke out his opinion about the condition of the political work and agitation before he had embarked upon his public career. On the 18th of March 1901, he delivered a lecture in memory of Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar's anniversary. And in that speech, Tilak expressed his views in this strain. It is not that learning alone lifts a man into the leadership of society. For a short period succeeding the disappearance of the Peshwas, influence and respect attached themselves to old historic houses. Government recognized their importance and people also looked up to them with awe. And it was natural, for education had not far advanced. Vices, which generally accompany wealth and luxury, crept into these families, and then the government began to look at them with contemptuous eye. Uh, with a contemptuous eye. Government found it more convenient to draw into their net the newly educated persons for administrative purposes. The new system of education did not cover any kind of religious and moral instruction, and the result of this sad defect was that the minds of these educated persons were in a hopeless condition. Their old moorings had been cut off, sheet anchor of their life, that is to say, regard for time honored social restrictions, was annihilated. What education this class of persons had been given was meager in quantity and not faultless in quality. So, this is the main observation he found out in Deccan College during his time as a teacher
Yes.
there,
Mm.
during his time when he was learning there,
Yeah, yeah,
when he was
exactly.
getting his degree. Yeah. So,
Mm.
nevertheless, even this half-baked and ill-digested mental equipment bought a goodly sum as remuneration and also a measure of respect from government. With this easy acquisition from its attendant banes, vis-a-vis, an inebriation of power from the facile tendency to ridicule and condemn society. This problem had crept in especially after the introduction of English education, um, and was the alienation of the leadership class from its root society itself. These thoughts would later guide the pathway of Tilak's mission. So, Rhythm, do you have any thoughts on this part?
Yeah, so have you seen this whole take which Tilak has? Like, we are seeing this even right now with the education system still continuing for last 200 years. We see these products coming now, like it came even in his times, and now it's coming more rapidly. In fact, with social media and all, it has reached its peak, I guess. And I guess at that time there were some people who had the wisdom to actually gauge the problem and even respond to it. But right now it's totally gone. It's a sad fate for us, I guess. Um, any comments do
So,
you
what he
have
gave
on
us,
this?
yeah, so what he gave us is quite a good diagnosis of the problem that is ongoing. Because he even mentioned how originally you can say the patronage networks of the old wealthy people, those old wealthy people, they
Hmm.
began to stop patronizing people, and they got more into wealth and luxury itself rather than actually working on producing educated people. And that a
Yes.
void that was taken up by the English education system, which was originally just a
Mhm.
system to produce clerks, just for the bureaucracy.
Mhm.
And then everybody started flooding into it. That became when I think this thing became huge problem.
True. And this quest, I guess the quest for power, which attracted everyone, right, in the government sector
Yeah, yeah.
towards getting
Everybody wanted to
English
be in
education.
the government job.
Mm. And somehow because these education system didn't have those, as he reflects on it, the religious and moral teachings ingrained within them, the kind of value system which they adopted was totally alienating from the society from which they were out of. And we see them criticizing the society afterwards, after completing their degrees and so on.
Very much, because they all take their context from the colonizer's perspective, right? So all the literature they teach, all the fundamentals of law, and all that, the all the context is basically the from the English society, so their English Christian perspective. So when that you
True.
translate that here, you're going to naturally find Indian society to be abnormal in many ways, and then you'll criticize it.
Right, 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 right. Um, you, especially I know that you know of something behind this education theory, right? So, but there was a conscious education theory within the Enlightened movement as well. So that theory, what, like, did it affect over here as well?
Uh, I some to some extent, but I do not think it's that important. What is more important is
Okay.
originally this system was for bureaucrats to produce bureaucrats, and it became a universal education system after a point, which was not the original use case.
True, 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 true. Okay, so we can move forward, I guess, right? Uh,
Yeah, I'll
this is
continue reading.
apt. Mhm.
A retrospect of the history of leadership in Maharashtra between 1837 to 1874 leads a critical observer to the inference that English education had the effect of rudely disturbing the balance, so necessary for the learned aspirant for the leadership of a nation awaiting immediate regeneration amid scholarship, morality, faith in religion, personal behavior, and family status. This kind of distress, fully unstable equilibrium, had the fatal consequence of leading these persons to pick holes in the prevalent social condition. Foreign teachers and missionaries also helped this destructive work. It was not realized like that the building of new systems of religion like the Brahmo Samaj or the Pratna Samaj was not the proper way to protect society against such onslaughts. Instead of opposing the spread of Christianity and retarding it, the new gospelers themselves became outcasts of their own society. When the multitude of common people noticed the bizarre manners and grotesque ideas of the crusading social reformers of those days, they turned their backs upon them in contempt. People, however, were not to blame. Was it not ridiculous and childish to seek to overthrow a whole social structure consecrated by thousands of years within only a few months? After 1875, the tide began to turn. The consciousness that the nation could not advance only by religious and social reforms made its slow rise in the mind of the new generation. It was recognized that government service was not the only channel to serve society. The force and usefulness of collective work made itself felt on the workings of the inchoate public opinion. The qualities of mature judgment, profound study, irreproachable conduct, moral courage, and love of sacrifice, which were conspicuous by their absence in the outgoing leadership, were thought to be supremely essential for the command of unsuspecting public confidence. So, this is quite an interesting observation that he believed that the you can call them neo Hindu sects. So, all the modern Hindu sects which started in the influence of modernity, say like Brahmo Samaj, Prarthana Samaj, maybe even Arya Samaj counts. So
Yes.
those actually they outcasted themselves from society rather than becoming vehicles of opposing the Christianity or
Opponents.
other religions from inside itself. So that is an
True.
interesting viewpoint here.
Yeah, and it's very apt, right? So the so-called new sects which came up, these really became a sort of what should I say, kind of uh, like without a cross, but they are basically Christians. So they were doing the same things, the same kind of criticisms which were being made by the missionaries. They were doing all of the same things as well. Uh, the societal ills, attacking societal ills is good enough, but even some societal customs which are not very problematic as well, but it still created a problem uh, because of the values that they had, and some of the disciplines, rituals, and especially image worship that really hurt them a lot. So these things were totally being mocked even by the new sects, which were supposed to be so-called bastions of defense against the onslaughts from Christianity, especially. But sadly enough, they became outcasts, as the paragraph says.
Absolutely. It was like most of them actually were as wild in their attack of the religion they actually came from, you can say Hinduism, as
True.
Christianity or Islam, you can say.
Mm. Uh, Sometimes even some may say that they were much more virulent in fact, because they knew the local idioms as well. So the kind of attacks that they gave, it had an edge over the so-called
Right,
foreign
right.
attacks, right?
That's why
Hmm.
they got more converts as well. They were more
True, true,
successful
true.
generally.
And instead of uniting the society, somehow they created much more fissures, which is which is very laughable in fact, and sad also.
Right. So another thing he notices about is that after 1875, this tide begins to turn. So that is around the time we can also
Hmm.
notice that the first type of political organizations start to sprout up, and finally, in 1885, they have Indian National Congress, which comes up. So I think that's around
True, true.
that, and even they were the same English educated class who basically started political organizations.
True, true, true. Surendranath Banerjee in Bengal and so on, Indian Association. Uh, these organizations were springing up all over the nation. Even in Maharashtra, I guess there were some Sarvajanik Sabha and so on under Justice Ranade. We'll get to that, of course. But yeah, these things were
Exactly. Yeah.
spring
We can
coming up.
continue.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
So by the time he enters, oh, one second. By the time
Mm.
he enters to public life, Tilak had the fortune to keenly observe giants like Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar, Vasudev Balwant Phadke, and the second batch of leaders, the tallest of them all was his senior contemporary Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade. These were the people by whom he and his friends got inspired enough to invest in society and not be cogs to the government machinery, which was eating away the vigor of society at large. After his degree, Tilak decided not to be a lawyer and instead be a teacher at the New English School, which was established by Vishnu Shastri, Savarkar, and he himself. It arose from his college days thought process that the educated class as a whole had a more responsibility towards the society at large, contribute to its welfare, uh, contribute to its welfare, classic noblesse oblige. So here, I think the perspective is that originally, or at least at the time when Tilak started, the majority opinion was that everything the government will come and do, all the
True.
education and everything, they would intervene and establish the colleges and such. So
Absolutely.
Tilak decided to take up that space and more establish an educational institution that is more oriented towards Indians, by
Yeah,
Indians
exactly.
themselves.
So much. Yeah, because he also, as you read out previously, right? So he like rightly pointed out the problems which were being which were arising due to the English education system, which so to counter that
Yeah.
you could not depend on the government itself. You need to step up. So yeah.
So yeah, I'll continue reading. Two ways open
Mhm.
for him for doing service to society: as an advisor to the old generation, to, and second, to educate the new generation. He chose the latter. Both Chiplunkar and Tilak made sure that it became so successful. So revival, the government funded Pune High School. This also was the laboratory where his vision for national education policy came alive. Resulting from its success was the establishment of the Deccan Education Society, which later led to the founding of Ferguson College.
Yeah, so Ferguson College was an output from the Deccan Education Society, also which was founded by all of the previous founders of the new English school. In fact, Agarkar, uh, Tilak, Chiplunkar, everyone. And the Deccan Education Society actually had many other members later on joining in, like the famous ones Gopal Krishna Gokhale, uh, K.T. Tilang, Kashinath Trembak Tilang, and so on and so forth. And from
I
that,
see.
you had even some Britishers joining in. Interestingly enough, like Sir Ferguson over here, who was the governor of Bombay. He actually promoted private education for some reason, which I don't know as to why. But he preferred private education instead of government education, and he funded this institution. And lo and behold, we have the Ferguson College.
I believe he might be in that class of like Englishmen. There were a lot of Englishmen at the time who used to like support Indians in their endeavors and stuff. So even the founder of Congress
True.
himself, he was also talking a lot about upliftment of Indians and all that. Although the context was a bit twisted and all, but the intentions were right. Yes.
True, 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 true. That's true. That's so true. Yeah, yeah. Even in Bengal, we have examples like David Hare, uh, who did the same, and over here, Sir Ferguson, and another guy, Professor Wordsworth. He was also in this whole project as well. Interesting
Right,
to
right.
see this. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll continue.
Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, it also got praised by missionaries as well because of its vigorous and patriotic, but very efficient management and management system and curriculum, which led to its success. So, birth of Kesari and Maratha. It was both from the
Hmm.
inspiration and ideas of both Chiplunkar and Nam Joshi. being by then a famous literary critic, and latter a very erudite editor and journalist, that a press was thought to be a necessary tool to propagate ideas and opinions on contemporary issues and bring out expressions of the public at large. Tilak agreed to its establishment. In the Aryabhushana press, the first work to be published was the 66th issue of Nibandhamala, a great compilation of essays by Vishnu Shastri, in which there was a uh, prospectus of Kesari with signatures of Chiplunkar, Tilak, Agarkar, and Namjoshi. Chiplunkar had made a prophecy of how it would make the opponent press hung their head in shame. Suffice to say, this became very true in a very short amount of time. The first issues of this paper let them concentrate on specific subjects. Chiplunkar on literary reviews, Agarkar on economics and social issues, Tilak on law and religion. The sister paper, Maratha, was in English, and also these two were different in the sense that Kesari had more vigor and sometimes vitriol in its language compared to Maratha, which was by far liberal and somber in its expression and opinions. Actually, I think about this thing in of them being more sober in English while being more vitriolic in the native language. There was quite a lot of press censorship at that time by the British in order to quell any anti-British opinions and stuff. So all the uh, documents that had to be printed used to come and be checked by an officer. I've read about that. That was the situation at least in
True.
1920s. So I think it should be
Wow.
similar in 1800s as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. It must be similar. I guess you had Hindu Patriot and Amrit Bazar Patrika in Bengal. Over here, you had Kesari,
Right, right.
Maratha, and so on. So yeah, this would British were anyways much more like they were always
They
much
were
more
very careful
suspicious,
about
right,
it.
about press freedom. Yeah, 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 yeah. They really curtail press freedom. Interesting to note that because they also champion all about civilization and enlightenment values and so on.
Absolutely. So the Kolhapur case. In the first years of both papers, Tilak and Agarkar had taken on the administration of the native states to task for misrule and rank corruption, especially in the princely state of Kolhapur. This was rampant, with a king who was thought to be lunatic and the minister and thief. Also, what was being warned in the paper was the usurping of that state by demise of that king, which would then be rightfully so blamed onto the British administration, given they were trustees and were in hand in gloves as well. But this had irked the minister Barway in question. With publishing of supposed false letters, this led to the case led to the defamation and then ultimately jail time for both Tilak and Agakar. So, do you have any thoughts on this, Rishi, on this case?
Yeah, so the Kolhapur case actually, so the king was Shivaji, and he was a young king actually, but there were suspicions that some sort of treatment was uh, happening uh, with him, and which was making him we can say weak in nerves and so on. So he was getting lunatic and all. On top of that, the minister, which was there, Barve, the prime minister, he was siphoning off all of the funds, and basically, uh, somewhere saying that he was uh, giving it to the British, and there was a conspiracy that the British was all keen to take away the native states. So they were doing that right in 1857. Before 1857, with the uh, I'm forgetting. It
Yeah,
was
with
the Act of
doctrine of
Dalhousie,
lapse
right?
and other the
Doctrine
doctrine
of
of
Lapse.
lapse
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
other.
Yeah. Yes. So that thing was, I think, not there anymore. But yeah, this was something which was in law, that if the native state princes were unwell and they were like getting totally uh, sick and all, the British kingdom has the duty to take over the native state as well for
Right,
administration
right.
purposes. So this really created an issue, and one of the main problem was that this is noted by actually Tilak, that uh, opposing the native states at that time was very unpopular, because till that time too, people had huge faith towards kings. This was seen with Sayajirao Gaikwad in Baroda, and Travancore
Right,
and so
right.
on, all of the native states. So even in this case, there was a lot of issues, and to get the public opinion on their side, they had to do a lot of investigations, and a lot of articles were written, and slowly and steadily they built up the public opinion uh, in their favor. But there was a great mistake. So what happened was, some false letters supposedly were published in another paper called Gnan Prakash, which was the paper published by the reformers in Maharashtra. So in Gnan Prakash, these false letters, which were supposedly written by Barve to the British government, these were published and said that, look, these are the evidences for implicating Barve as a thief and so on. Kesari also published it, unfortunately. And what happened? The Gyan Prakash got the wind of it, and they some suspect that they
Oh,
knew
I
it
see.
was fake, and they retracted it, but Kesari could not. Uh, so they were slow at it. So what happened was, Barve came from Kolhapur to Bombay and then filed a defamation case upon Tilak and Agarkar. uh, they also went to ask help from MG Ranade, who knew about this. So it was supposedly Ranade who was supposed to help them in court, given he was also a justice, but he didn't for some reason, and they had to face jail time because of that.
It's very interesting that at that time, even defamation cases would lead to jail time, or it was
Oh yeah, yeah.
purposefully done for some reason.
I guess so. Barve did it purposefully, in fact. So Barve was very keen on getting them into jail. Like, he was very pained by so-called allegations upon him being a thief and so on. And the judge made sure that they go to jail. So this
Got
was
it.
the case,
Also,
actually.
this also the Kolhapur Raja and I think Satara Raja, they're descendants of Shivaji Maharaj only.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
they must have been
They
quite
are.
popular at least.
Yeah, very much popular. Especially within the Maratha memory, they were so popular, right?
Right,
It
right.
was a huge risk for them to implicate them as lunatic and so on. Huge risk.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
So we'll
continue
get to the
reading
juicy
then.
stuff now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The juicy stuff comes here.
So Tilak and social policies. One of the most contentious subjects which led to him breaking away from his longtime friend Agarkar too. A subject which still today creates issues, but many needs to be dwelled in a very slow but steady manner. So let's explain as to what were in the objectives of the reformers then in red. Uh, the policies with respect to social reform of Tilak and Agarkar were entirely divergent. Agarkar was rather too extremely outspoken and perhaps a little overzealous in the expression of his views on social reforms. He wanted a complete revolution in the whole Hindu religion, its ritual and practice. He also wanted an immediate social reconstruction and an overhauling social customs. He was prepared even to take the aid of law to reform Hinduism and abolish or amend the objectionable traditional customs of Indians. Tilak's policy differed widely from this kind of red hot gospelism. So, basically, in opposition to um,
Yeah.
Agarkar's
Agarkar.
view of government intervention and that social revolution type of policy.
Hmm.
Tilak had
Hmm.
written this. Tilak's policy differed widely from this kind of red hot gospelism. His attitude was that of a rationalist in this respect. He stood midway between the immovable orthodoxy of the people, who are steeped over their heads and ears in traditions of olden days, and the roared hog speed of uh, apocalyptic social revolutionists. In several places in Kesari, Tilak has explained this policy with characteristic candor and clearness. It was never his intention to give offense to public mind by adopting extreme social reforms in religion. Tilak was never in favor of starting a separate sect like Brahmo Samaj, Pratna Samaj, or Arya Samaj. He did certainly desire reforms to be introduced into society and religion, but it was his conviction that the best policy to achieve the end with least shock to generally conservative public mind was the policy of festina lente, that is, the policy of peaceful penetration, where desirable, and the policy of masterly inactivity um, when that was impossible. Precept and education were the only two instruments which Tilak wanted to be used in effecting social reform. He never approved of a religion degenerated into dead dogma overgrown with thick weeds of spuriously religious customs and practices. What he was vehemently opposed to was the summoning of a foreign agency by means of law to accomplish a social regeneration, which ought to be, in his opinion, an evolution from within if it was prove healthy and beneficial to the public. So, at last, to summarize the policies vis-a-vis society, Tilak's views could be summarized under these points. The 10 years between 1882 and 1892 form a great period of great social conflicts between Tilak on the one hand and social reformers on the other. A close scrutiny of the part played by Tilak in these controversies yields the following five principles which Tilak followed in the matter of social reform. They may be summarized as follows. 1. Under foreign domination, political reform must be given precedence over social reform. 2. More than others, educated people must first take up the political work. 3. For the sake of convenience, two separate sets of workers must devote themselves to the two kinds of work. 4. Leaders of social reform must be men of spotless character and must boldly push the work forward by personal example and by actual practice. 5. The lean of least resistance, or the line of least resistance and yet of slow but sure results for the spread of knowledge among people. The policy of appraising the strength of the chain by means of strength of its weakest link. Although
Hmm.
interestingly, this is what he had to face. Do you want to add on anything here, or should I continue?
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you. So, you got to know about Agarkar, and you also came across what Tilak believed. So, do you think Agarkar was represented by Savarkar later on in his vigor and policies, or rather Tilak?
So I haven't read Agarkar in that much, but I would also think that looking at some writings of Savarkar, it looks like he's as much a rationalist as Tilak. Though he's very dogmatic about you can say the seven shackles right of society. He's very dogmatic about that.
Hmm.
That is
Yeah.
debatable
So
whether it's right or not. But
true, true, true.
overall, other than that, he is open-minded. He does say that if there is no harm in keeping society to Hindu society together, then the traditions can stay.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay, so this was important to know because many kind of like the projection of Savarkar is that of a anti-traditionalist, right? So he's like he
Yeah,
criticizes rituals and so on and so forth. So um, I always used to think like he was maybe like an Agarkar. So Agarkar was like that even in his Marathi writings, Agarkar is like really criticizing Hindu religion, in fact, to some extent. Like he goes to that level because he's totally tired of seeing divisions in society. You know, the usual things which Savarkar also noticed. So in that he got really ahead and also started abusing Hindu religion as well. So like Savarkar, did he? Which is why my question was as such. Like, did Savarkar really reach that point, like Agarkar did, or did he just stop at that? Like, okay, there are the problems; these are the solutions. That's it. So, and you
I
said that he
think
was a rational.
here the perspective is different. When you see Savarkar abusing, he's abusing the people. He's not abusing the religion. He
Hmm.
calls in the way that like he thinks that they're practicing an irrational uh, form of their religion. And when he criticizes the religion, so I think I remember that he quoted one time the Marathi sons, when say like Namdev and others, right? In that
Uh-huh.
manner, he criticizes religion. So you get it, right?
Oh, okay, okay. I get it. I get it. Yeah,
He's not
interesting,
anti-ritual per
interesting.
se. So, but he thinks that if it is not performative, then what is the point?
Hmm. True, true, true. Uh, Anyways, he was also a bit of atheist, right? So
Yes,
we
yes.
can we can
But
we
one
can.
thing for sure, he was kind of dogmatic about that was the seven shackles and stuff that shows up repeatedly in
Mm-hmm.
his writing.
True, 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 true. Okay, so this is my last question, I guess, for this portion. So
Hmm.
you read the points, right, of Tilak. So Tilak's first point is under foreign domination, political reform must be given precedence over social reform. Vis-a-vis that, Savarkar is very different, right? So Savarkar is first about social reform internally, and then going for political reform, aka political domination and political acquisition of power, right? Uh, in that regards.
I think he was doing both simultaneously. He didn't actually
Hmm.
prioritize either. Though he was he had that fear that if India was independent, then it would be dominated by Muslims. So it is better we collectivize as Hindus first properly, then get independent, and then manage the whole India. That was
Hmm.
him.
Okay, okay. Okay, you can continue because much more
Yeah.
things are going to come now. Hmm.
Although interestingly, this is what he had to face. Tilak yielded to none in taking due pride in Orthodox religion and Hindu customs. Had the Kesari not advocated with such unremitting vigor the side of the Orthodox, the social firebrands of the day would have caught from the government any kinds of laws in furtherance of what they flippantly regarded as social advancement by deluding it with an imposture of public opinion. But Tilak cruelly tore off the mask and exhibited in sharp and clear outline what the real public opinion was in that respect. However, paradoxical though it may seem, from another side, he was being attacked in the same time as the social reformer. But in this delicate position itself lay the chief and enduring merits of his social policy and program. It is said that when both the sides to an arbitration consider the award as imperfect or unjust, it is supremely right and well balanced. Tilak was attacked from one flank by the extreme social reformers and from the other by the extreme sticks in the mud. He was opposed by the former group because he stood between the social reformers and laws of the government for carrying out social reforms. He was fired at the latter group because he was pleaded with the people first to plow their untutored minds to receive the seeds of social reforms. In all of this, the conduct Tilak showed is summarized thus. The solid principle, one second, solid principle underlying all this conduct of Tilak was to, uh, why is it not loading? Was to take a leap forward in social reform without forsaking people far behind, and at the same time without bringing the religion of the forefathers into contempt or even into slight disrespect. It was the compass of this principle that aided him in tiding over all the social storms of those days. And social winds had a habit, as it were, of rising high, and social sea of being tempestuous at the slightest change in the atmosphere. To end this, we can summarize his actions, again with a very interesting anecdote. One little journalist skirmish between Tilak and Nagarkar in this connection may be fittingly closed in this chapter. In an issue of his paper of the month of November 1892, Agarkar made certain false allegations against his friend about having taken food at the hands of Mohammedan or Portuguese messmen. It was, of course, an unmitigated lie. Tilak at once denied it and demanded its withdrawal. Agarkar, however, did not think of immediately retracting his words. Uh, Not till prosecution was threatened and Justice Ranade himself interceded did he think fit to express regret and take back his mischievous charge against Tilak. In his bubbling humor, Agarkar wrote an article publishing the untruthfulness of the accusation he himself had made against Tilak. But in this article, Agarkar wrote that though Tilak had denied the charge of having eaten out of the hands of the Mohammedan messman, he was not against taking tea from Christian hands. He further extended that the difference between the two acts is simply six of the one and half a dozen of the other. Tilak gave a very crushing reply to this fallacy. He asserted that though chemically coal and diamond consisted of the same properties, no businessman ever fancied the distinction between them to have been completely annihilated. It was a wrong conclusion to draw that, because a man drank a cow's milk and used the other ears of a cow, he should not scruple to devour the cow itself. Tilak was a past master in the art of driving out the nail of one witticism by another, equally pointed and sharp. Right. We can move on to the next part. Did you have any thoughts on that, Rishi?
Yeah, so you got to see, right? Like Tilak, one of the points which you reflected upon, I think, like Tilak was not agreeing to any such social reform which went against the religion itself. So he was very clear on this issue, right? So he said, I think you read it, right? Like Tilak didn't agree with any such reform which like totally
This
went
one,
against
right?
the religion itself. Yeah. Without forsaking the people, yeah. At the same time, without bringing the religion of the forefathers into contempt. Yeah, exactly. This point. So these things were totally being forgotten by the reformers, especially I think, because many of them, like Agarkar, is an example of it. So Agarkar used to mock the Hindu customs and Hindu religion a lot, because these were hindrances towards social reform as per his vision. And
Yeah,
Tilak was not going to take that at all. If there has to be social reform, it has to be with the religion. It cannot be without the religion. This is a very different perspective, I think, because in this, maybe you can correct me on this, or we can discuss this a lot more later on. Like Savarkar was like a bit. Let's say he would say that okay, that practice has gone old and we should not do it. Let's
right.
move ahead. Tilak was like, no. If there is a practice, if it is valid by the scriptures, we will do it. But along with it, we'll bring also social reform and so on. So this sort of approach is very, I think it's a very fine approach, right? Like it's a very fine difference. It's not
Absolutely.
a very huge difference, I
So,
guess.
so you know how in Christianity there's that the sin, the idea of the sin, right? So, so
Yes.
when someone converts, they are told that all their ancestors were actually following the wrong religion, so they have a sin, and
Hmm. Hmm.
that they will go to hell and such. So when these social reformers tell when they actually change the religion and they tell someone that everything that was being followed until now that was wrong, so they are actually propagating that same idea in a way.
Hmm. Wow.
Tilak
Seriously,
was
a
being very
Christian.
consistent
Wow.
that when you bring a change, it should be consistent with what the ancestors would agree with.
Yeah. You also read another paragraph, right? So it was saying that Tilak was like the mouthpiece of Orthodox in some cases. Yeah, this paragraph. Like
This
he
one.
was taking pride in the Orthodox religion and customs and fighting against the social reformers. But also he was being attacked for being social reformer as well for some reason
Exactly.
because he agreed to education and so on. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's get into this. Yeah. So this is where I think for the audience as well, some juicy stuff more are gonna come because these are about communal issues. Yeah.
On religious clashes, Tilak, while in public life, had to deal with many such clashes. Constant barrages from both enemies inside and those that were pronounced outside. He had to take them to task. These two distinct incidents come to mind. First is the case of Sarada Sadan controversy. This started with a recent convert to Christianity, Pandita Ramabai, coming back to Pune and after establishing Arya Mahila Samaj, which was as an objective, all-sided development of females. In this great endeavor, she acquired help of many people, such as Miss Hereford, British officers, American missionary organizations, and the other evangelists as well. Amidst these donations, she agreed to impart common education, but if any religious preaching was to be done, it had to be only Christianity. Then she ultimately founded the Sarada Sadan in Bombay in 11 March 1889. Many of the reformers joined with her organization, like Ranade, G.H. Deshmukh, S.P. Pandit, K.T. Telang, etc. Kesari from the very beginning was suspicious about its benign nature, and then news broke out as to how girls were made to attend Christian prayers, and some had started showing interest already in getting converted, which was also being reported by Christian Weekly of 1889. Kesari advised people to inquire before enrolling the girls into this institution. Ramabai reacted saying, "It would not have been necessary for the institution to be Christianized if our countrymen could have be liberally patronized it themselves. It's the Hindus who did not extend any help that had to get it from Christians. All people that know that it is far easier to blame others than to work themselves." Though this stopped much of the critics for the time being, but much public opinion started to go against, given the rise of incidents from the institution, started refuting its philanthropic nature itself. So, in a June number of the Kesari, at here is a anecdote from Tilak's writings. In a
Yeah,
June number of
exactly.
the Kesari, the attitude of the case, which then had passed fully into Tilak's hands, became emphatically more pronounced and more offensive. It wrote that though it had not been possible for the Hindus to collect subscriptions to the amount to which Rama had succeeded, truth must be sometime be revealed to the whole world, and sooner the better. People were confirmed in their opinion that the aim of the sun was not so much of female education as the spread of Christianity. Men like Justice Ranade took a superior view of the whole situation and thought there was nothing wrong for Hindus taking advantage of the beneficent activities promoted and carried on even by a Christian lady. The Kesari seems to have gone wild with rage with this line of argument. It condemned them, possessed of titles, power, and self as they were, as traitors to their own society, enemies to Hinduism, prayers of female education. At last, uh, evidence accumulated, therefore, to prove that the institution was really denominational in working and outlook. Whatever explanation to the contrary Ramabai and his Hindu supporters published, instead of disproving people's allegations, more and more deepened them. Kesari published certain experts in its columns which proved to be the last straw to break the back of the institution and its protagonists. At last, Dr. Bhandarkar, Justice Ranade, others forswore all connection with Pandita Ramabai's Sharda Sadan. The letter of resignation may be read with subdued joy at Tilak's triumph. We have strong reasons to believe that many of the girls are induced to attend her private prayers regularly and read the Bible, and that Christian doctrines are taught to them. Pandita Ramabai has also shown her missionary tendencies by asking the parents and guardians of girls to allow them to attend her prayers, and in one case, cities become Christians themselves. We are assured that two of the girls have declared to their elders that they have accepted Christ. Such a departure from the original understanding cannot fail, in our opinion, to shake the stability of the institution and alienate public sympathy from this work. We are sorry. Our individual remonstrances with the Panditabai have proved of no avail. If the Sadhan is to be conducted as an avowed proselytizing institution, we must disavow all connection with it. Now the next. Now the question is, was he against female education itself, as is portrayed now? Given his utmost respect for one of the stalwart said, Dr. Anandibai Joshi, this label on him is completely false. What he was opposed to was any attack on his religion and any attempts to get Hindus converted to other faiths. Yeah, so that was covering of that one incident. Do you have any thoughts on that,
Yeah,
Rishi?
yeah. So you remember, right? So if you anybody who has studied in CBSE, NCRT, they would know in while studying modern history. I think in class 10, I guess, they have to read about Pandita Ramabai as a female icon, one of the greatest reformers, and so
Yes,
on and
yes.
so forth in India. But these juicy things are never told to us, right? So she's made an icon to us, but what she was actually doing, she was not doing reforms. She was proselytizing over here in the garb of so-called female education. Uh, this was fleshed out by Tilak, and till today, Tilak is also abused by many academics, especially in USA, as misogynist and against female rights, against female education, so forth, just because of this one single incident, which he proved to be correct about, in fact. Even after getting so much of criticism from the Hindu supporters of this institution as well, you see the all of the stalwarts name, all of the social reformers again, Gopal Hari Deshmukh, Krishna, Kashinath Trimbak Tilang, Mahadev Govind Ranade, Ramakrishna Bhandarkar, Dr. Bhandarkar, Bori is in his name. These
Right,
people
right.
are all funding that institution and defending it. But at last, Tilak won, and they had to resign from it, given the public opinion went so anti against the institution itself. And Pandita Ramabai also had to face consequences of it. But she was very adamant, right? She gave a very apt reply at that time. But of course, that wouldn't
That was a lie,
suffice for the
basically.
results. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she got she was getting payments from American Missionary Society, and yet she was the one to say, "Look, Hindus are not funding it, therefore I'm taking funds from the Christians, and so on and so forth. Why don't Hindus do anything?" And so on. But which was false, because the Hindus were doing it independently as well. So what was the reason that Hindus would, especially as someone who was a recent convert to Christianity, would support her especially?
Right, right. But I think that this particular point of proselytization in educational institution, that was very fairly common. If you remember, even earlier they used to call it Hindu college, right? In Kolkata. There as well,
Yeah, yeah.
people would convert because the kind of teaching they were doing there was completely Christian, right?
Oh, yes, very much so. Under Alexander Duff over there. That's the
Yes,
guy
yes.
who was
Yeah, I
doing
think
all the process.
1830s, right? That
Oh, yeah, yeah,
820s,
absolutely.
30s. That was very
Mm.
virulent anti Hindu rhetoric there.
Oh, yeah. Like to the extent that I talked about David here, right? So David here actually used to oppose him, and because of that, David here was not allowed a proper burial by Christians, because he was thought of as a heretic, someone who supported the Hindus. Such was the environment over there.
Right. So it was an overall theme with educational institutions in general at that time.
Even today, right? Even today, Christians, missionaries, I would say, not Christians as a whole, but missionaries do that still, right? In various Catholics and various other schools in villages and so on.
Yes, yes, very much so. And they get the same kind of funding that she got at that time.
Wow. And the name also, see, the name is Sharda Sadan, very innocuous name, no
Very innocent
problem.
and right,
Yeah.
Indian sounding.
Wow. Talk about
Okay, we can
fooling someone.
continue with
Wow.
the next incident then.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Another incident would be the Hindu-Muslim conflicts. So, one second. Poon- uh, Pune and Bombay both were embroiled in this from 1892 onwards, which led Tilak to investigate them in detail. The Bombay riots in 1893 were initiated by Muslims after they had been riled up to agitate, which led to this catastrophe. Even after peace was achieved, tensions kept brewing underneath, leading to many meetings from both sides throwing proposals and counter proposals at each other. The papers were writing op-eds on these, but none of them surprisingly went to investigate at the deep roots of it all. As usual, Kesari comes into the picture. So the Kesari emphatically declared that the Mohammedans were uncontrollable, that the cause of their intractability was the softness of the government's policy towards them. Hindus were supposed to be protected from the onslaughts of the Mohammedans by the presence of Britishers in India. Such declarations, the Kesari pointed out, egged on and emboldened Mohammedans assault the Hindus. It was further emphasized that Lord Harris, the then governor of Bombay, instead of proffering his advice to Mohammedans, only wasted his breath in addressing his words of wisdom to the members of the Bombay Legislative Council, among whom not a single Mohammedan was counted. Really speaking, the seat of riots was among the uneducated classes. If disturbance of peace was to be prevented in a sincere manner, these classes must be brought under the strict rule of law. It was wrong to make fish of one community and flesh of another, and both required to be most impartially ruled over. If such unsuspectedly even-handed administration was thought to be impossible, Kesari wrote without mincing matters that the government must be held incompetent. In brief, the Kesari constantly laid out stress on the fact that there were three parties in this controversy: the Hindus, the Mohammedans, and last but not the least, the government. The Kesari insisted that as Lord Harris had harped upon harmony and peace, so he should have enjoined strict impartiality on his officers in their behavior towards the public.
Ninar,
Even
don't you think?
yes,
Yeah. Sorry. So, don't you think the similar things happen even right now? The administration does the same damn thing again, even right now.
ah,
Like the
this actually started
continue.
because of 1857 when there was that whole thing about excessive religious intervention, right, in government policy.
True.
After a point,
Mm-hmm.
they were like, we want to keep our hands off these people and let them fight and all. So that's how this violence and all used to take place. Uh,
Yep.
There are,
Yep.
I think, not this 1893, but another Bombay riots where the
Hmm.
common theme of like they will butcher a cow and they'll throw it in the temple and then the riot will begin.
Oh.
That type of thing happened, and they didn't care actually. Nobody was sent to jail only except the people who responded, and that
Wow.
was the kind of thing.
Again, the same thing. The same damn thing even happens right now. Wow.
Yeah,
Yes, you
very
can
much.
continue.
The principle of acting, like the way they act, it's based on the same principles, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like Tilak is pointing out how they are intractable, uncontrollable, and also the root cause is within the uneducated classes, which I guess we will discuss about it later on. I guess I will not say it right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. We can. I'll continue for now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Although even the other people like Gyan Prakash could gauge it, but in spite of such emphatic assertions in the press, these moderate journals and the inspirers hesitated to follow up and practice what they preached when it came to the pinch and when the time came for public proclamation and defense of such bold views. Surprisingly enough, these papers and very papers and persons became unscrupulous enough to attribute orthodoxy and hatred of Mohammedans to Tilak when he launched out on his campaign of agitation. This is again the same thing we see right now, right?
Same,
You can call this a
same
liberal
thing.
view. This is a liberal
Yeah,
view he's talking about.
yeah. It's the fault of the other party because they hate the violent group and so on. They should be
Exactly.
welcoming. Again, the damn thing. Please, please, you can continue.
Yeah. There were then successful riots then in Yola as well. Tilak urged the Hindus not to join the Tabut festival, which worked out well. The Kesari reportedly made it clear that Hindus that do not buy peace Mohammedans with dishonor to the religion with loss of self-respect. But however, Pune could not escape the touch of the contagion of the riots. The social reformers were as vociferous in their attacks on the Ganesh festival as they were dumb on the haughtiness and irreconcilable attitude of the Mohammedans. Tilak, on the contrary, had convinced in his own mind that any softness on the part of Hindus would deprive them of their most simple rights. There was, in his opinion, a limit to the demands of the minority on the majority, and also a limit to the surrender of the majority to the sentiments of the minority. He did not conceal his view that even if the necessary consequences would threaten to be somewhat serious, the legitimate rights of Hindus must be protected. Tilak had been strongly and tirelessly canalizing these principles by means of the Kesari to the very bosoms of the people. In fact, the attitude of the government was often more favorable to Mohammedans, was admitted by the social reformers themselves in their correspondence with the government in relation to the subject. Boiled down, point of difference was that of resistance, and here Tilak parted company with them. The very temperament of Tilak on one hand and that of social reformers on the other differed fundamentally. The result was the opponents of Tilak began to find fault with the Ganesh festival only because they could not muster enough courage enough to blame the principle which Tilak advocated. But these didn't deter him since the public in large number came for the festival, proving the social reformers totally wrong in thinking that they had any ground with the masses at all. Right. So, do you have any points on that part?
Yeah, so you see over here again that uh, the moderates understand as to the government supporting the virulent and the belligerent faction always in the riots. Yet the blame has to be on Tilak and especially his Ganesh festival because Ganesh festival brings out the idols and idols are very idols hurt the sentiments of certain communities and so on, and therefore Tilak has to be blamed all over again. But they cannot at all muster up the courage to counter Tilak's proposal as to why should Hindus lose their self-respect always at the altar of harmony and peace. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. And even this point was quite interesting that you can see that Tilak was doing something constructive while the other side they were trying to be destructive. They're being detractive towards something that is existing and bringing meaning and purpose to the masses, right? So obviously Tilak won
Yeah,
in the end.
true, true, true. So true. Like Ganesh festival is. actually creating a what should I say, coalition of Hindus, right? Like these are the grounds where Hindus coagulate, irrespective of their various differences. Yet, it's a problem for the social reformers who want unity. Amazing.
You can see a parallel with, say, like we had Ram Mandir, right? So the other side would
Mhm.
advocate for no Ram Mandir at all. That was the
Yeah,
absolute detractive position, and our side was doing something constructive. So we got actually
yeah.
in the end the victory. When you actually move with a constructive purpose, you actually win. And that is the lesson here.
Even in Kumbha, right? Like Kumbha Mela, they will oppose it, but Kumbha Mela
Yeah, yeah.
again does the damn thing same. But what can we say? I guess they wanted their kind of unity, not this kind of unity.
Very much so. So I'll continue.
Yeah.
And the consequences of the constant criticisms from Kesari led to, in the Ganesh festival of 1895 at Dhulia, the government realized that the initiative of the disturbance lay with the Mohammedans. The collector of the district himself was led to the conclusion which Tilak had been reiterating for the last 2 years. In the issue of the 10th of September 1895, Tilak might be taken to have written his last article on the subject of Hindu-Muslim relations. Naturally, it sums up his general attitude to the question. Thereafter, other events recurred, and the outbreak of plague and the repressive policy of Rand introduced a new chapter in the public life. In his public life, in his closing article, Tilak wrote thus: "The position taken by the Mohammedans does not stand to reason. To say that the Hindus should stop all kinds of music at all times of the day is an erroneous demand, and no reasonable man can give his consent to it. The right of stopping music before must has its origin in local customs to some extent. It is not possible that the local Hindus and Muslims should not know the existence or otherwise of such customs. We therefore urge upon our brothers, the Muslims, to give up their too sweeping demand of stopping even soft music. If Mohammedans cannot bear the music at the time of prayer, how do they practice worship in trains, in ships and shops? Not only so, the religious book prescribed that a Mohammedan should do his prayer wherever he may happen to be. It follows that it is wrong to say that music causes a disturbance to the prayer, and that music before mosques is blasphemous. These improper ideas must have been crammed into their heads by some selfish persons. It will be easy to settle the question of music before the mosques if the Mohammedan attitude is toned down in the spirit. It is no use being puffed up by the partiality of the government. When the time comes that the Hindus and Muslims alike will equally be a prey to them. At last, these events and Tilak's policy could be summarized as follows. So, social reformers rarely lost an opportunity to find fault with Tilak's policy as being unbalanced and indiscriminate. The absence of even a single solitary Mohammedan considered the question in the serene and cold light of reason, when men like Ranade and Gokhale were ever ready to adopt a policy of mutual harmony and impartiality, constitute a sufficient answer to the charge against Tilak of an unyielding attitude. Tilak knew that Mohammedan law was unfillable and implacable. Under those circumstances, Tilak felt that it would be a wise course for Hindus to state their position and stand to it through thick and thin, be the outcome what it might. This policy appears to all superficial observers to be a policy of unsophisticated partisanship. But the present state of the Hindu-Muslim question, when no amount of surrender has yet satisfied the Mohammedans, brought them round to regard India in the spiritual of national patriotism, might well be taken to adjust that policy of 30 years ago to the duly cautious and to be duly cautious and quite in keeping with the social and religious self-respect of the Hindus. Tilak himself never picked any quarrel with the Mohammedans. He was always ready for mutual adjustment and compromise. More in his speeches and writings, he was inclined more towards refuting charges leveled against Hindus rather than towards accusing the Mohammedans in any respect. The feeling of respect which he cherished for the Hindus and Hinduism was exceedingly sharp and delicate. and any rude touch to that sense always used to put him on his mettle. It was not his habit to brook sheepishly the slightest attack on what was the most venerable in his mind. He would storm at the enemy, whoever he might be, and overthrow him completely, and almost with a tiger-like valor. The timorous and pusillanimous did not approve of this course of action. But beyond sending an application or two to the government or landing out peaceful advice from their lordly dishes from a safe distance, these pontifical critics of Tilak did not move a finger for the solution of that question, kept the public mind spinning in anxious agitation for long months. No wonder, therefore, people came to have the utmost regard for Tilak and made him a popular hero.
Hmm.
And that was the end of this document. Do you have any thoughts
Yep.
on that?
Yeah. So we see here, right, that the social reformers were always at his throat, like making him the villain at every step of the way, because he was being a barrier to the policy of mutual harmony and impartiality, or peace, in fact. But Tilak didn't mind that, because Tilak was always about uh, realizing this fact that Hindus are not supposed to give up their rights or their self respect or their respect for their religion at the altar of harmony, at the altar of brotherhood with another community. It cannot be the case that it cannot be the case that Hindus always have to sacrifice because there is something much more to aspire for, such as harmony. This cannot be happening. And we see that Tilak was always social solution oriented, and he was steadfast in these principles, which required courage and bravery, unlike the other party, which sounded more elite and distanced and alien, in fact, and also very cowardish, uh, compared to Tilak. So
Right.
yeah, Tilak became the popular hero.
So one thing I wanted to ask, it says that his last article on this Hindu-Muslim issue was around 1893 or something, right? So do you know the reason
Yeah.
why he didn't publish on that after that?
Yeah, so just after that, there was a deadly plague in Maharashtra, in Pune, and that was another horrendous set of activities. Cause in that the British, uh, like it was the special community which was abusing the Hindus and Hindu customs. Now it's the British who are going to do that. uh, if anybody has seen, I think the movie Savarkar of Randeep Huda also shows this. I guess
Yeah.
because this was
Okay.
something very
That I understood now.
yeah, you understood, right? So like getting into homes, like kicking the like the temple areas of the homes. Mm, Modesty of women were like, what should I say, assaults were happening, complete lawlessness was there. Tilak totally concentrated on that issue, and we know what happens later on. The Rand, the guy, the plague commissioner, gets assassinated by Chafekar brothers. Again, Tilak has to get into that case as well, because he's the one implicated for that.
Right. So basically, a lot of new issues popped up, and he could not continue writing on.
Yeah, he left it with that. Central message was that he was not really interested in criticizing Mohammedans, like the way some new sects used to do. Ninar and Dada.
Yes.
Whom am
Yes.
I talking about? So he was like always defending Hinduism, and Hindus should have respect, self-respect. That's it. And he's okay that okay, they are also our brothers. See, you will see the language, right? In Maratha, he's writing
Yeah. And he said
Muslims
that
as brothers.
Hindus can play soft music instead of loud music. He was
Yeah,
uh, he was okay with a small compromise.
yeah, small compromise, but not like becoming mattress for the other to step
Yes.
upon.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. So there's one more thing which I wanted to. I was listening to the discussion fully. So I think many of people. So like we were talking about the Shatru Bodh and Swayam Bodh. correct? We had just discussed it in our previous stream. So, do you think that whether it was Tilak or whether it was Savarkar, okay, they really had a grasp on the Shatrubodh concept within the Hindutva circle, the way it should be in particular with their writings and other things.
Nenar, would you want to address that first?
You can talk about Tilak and his Shatrubodh first.
Fine, fine. Okay. Dada, yes, I think Tilak had this concept very clear. Actually, in one of the Kesari articles, I believe. So it was on this issue, specifically on the Hindu Mohammedan conflict issue. Surprisingly enough, he addresses this issue of unity and brotherhood, even amongst Hindus as well. So he gets into this topic like the social reformers want all divisions to go away for Hindus to unite, like to coalesce as one unit. So he says this specifically in the context, like he gives the example of Brahmins in Maharashtra. So the Deshastha or the Brahmins east of the Western Ghats and the ones who are in the west of the Western Ghats, like the Ratnagiri, the Konkan region. So they are called Chitpavans. The Chitpavan Brahmins are in the sea coast area and the others are Deshastha. So they are in the mainland Maharashtra. They did not used to eat with each other. They could not sit with each other in Maharashtra. They had such issues. Like they were Brahmins, yet they had so much of differences with each other. So what was the reason? So he gives the reason that even if you have same set of identities, you have such stark practices amongst each other. So what is this case? What is this Shatruta that is being developed over here? Why is there no brotherhood? So he points out, it's a very brilliant slok that he quotes in his Kesari. Samana Shila Vyasaneshu Sakhyam. So he says that agreement in values and agreement in who are the enemies create brotherhood. Agreement in values and agreement in enemies create brotherhood. There is no other way to create brotherhood within anybody. So he says that within even Hindus, if you have to create brotherhood or even with someone else, you will have to have same sort of values and same sort of enemies. So basically he was saying that you could not be friends with those who are not agreeing with the enemies. Like who are the enemies? Were the Hindus and Muslims agreeing on that? Absolutely not. They were not even agreeing on the values itself. So yeah, this was the case with Tilak. That was the diagnosis he had. Uh, Dada, you can comment on it. We cannot hear
Ninar,
you. It's muted.
yeah, Ninar, you can give the perspective of Savarkar.
And you saying Shatrubodh?
Yeah, Shatrubodh. Like the because correct. So we are looking at the like correct two strands of Hindutva political thought, Hindutva philosophical thought. Okay, how they saw the society from the different prisms.
Right, right.
Okay.
So I would say that his Swayambodh was more like very general and broad based. That was not his focus, but his Shatrubodh was quite strong. And he was actually trying to align the perception of self based on Shatrubodh. So who are not with us, they are an enemy. That way, you can also look at. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but now correct. I have highlighted something correct, which is there the parasitic mind, how infectious ideas are killing common sense. So when uh, like take this as not something which I am comparing current ideas to the ideas which are there 100 years ago, but in general, correct. We as also Rishi mentioned that we are seeing the almost similar kind of incidents in a similar kind of pattern following over 3, 4, 5 centuries. Like if you don't have the record, but we can imagine, okay, if this is happening in 1800s, it may be happening before that as well. Correct. So we have seen the same pattern happening. So when Tilak says that you can play slow music, correct, that is correct. So he did not, Tilak did not understand the perspective that where they are coming from. That if you're going to yield to their demand of low music or soft music, next demand would be no music.
Right.
Rishi. So I'm talking
Yeah, so
in terms of Shatrubodh perspective.
yeah, I understand. So we are concentrating on the issue of soft music, but he gave this as a solution later on. You see, first he's criticizing the very basis of the Mohammedans, claiming that you should not play the music. So he's
Hmm.
criticizing that's nonsense. So you cannot say that. But then how would you
Hmm.
do the practices which you do in ships and shops and other places where there are sounds which you have no
Hmm.
control over? So this cannot be a reason for us to stop playing music. We can maybe, like he says, right? So local customs for local issues in some local areas, maybe we can give some credence to you and say, okay, we will play a bit less sound, but we cannot be playing no music. We will not yield to your uh, demands for that, because this will be a disrespect to our own customs. We cannot do that. We will not do that. So this theme comes up every time. This is the thing that he has.
Yeah.
On the
So
Shatrughat thing, I think
yeah, I understood your point, because correct, he was like trying to keep it alive rather than go for full blown confrontation.
Yes.
yeah. Like he had
And
like least amount of interest with the other party. Like, what do
hmm,
you like? Whatever you do, you do. I don't care. But you cannot tell us what to do. That's the
hmm,
whole
hmm,
process he has.
correct, correct. But correct, now, like if we take the, like, the data is already there. Correct, the data is already there. In terms of writings of R.C. Mojumdar, Jujudunath Savarkar, and many other texts which are there. Correct, which has actually like far more gory details in terms of what the invaders did actually. Correct. So from that perspective, can we say in hindsight that what Gadsad had written, and he has talked about in his books, the parasitic mind, where, because he specifically mentions that the ideology from the desert lands is like that, that if you agree to their one demand, it is perceived as weak enemy. That the enemy is weak.
Hmm.
He is, that is something I'm not sure whether you know it or not. Karthad, in his papers and his talks, he has mentioned that the desert lands where the ideology has began, correct, there the concept is itself that if I tell something and if you agree to it, it means you are a weak, so I can do whatever I want with you. That is how the ideology works. Now I am, that
Hmm.
is saying in the hindsight, because Gadsar has said it openly. But if you see the invasions from Ghori onwards, correct, what was their perspective? Their perspective was the total annihilation of the enemy, their children, their women, everything. So whether whether our ancestors, did they understand the perspective, how the ferocious the enemy is, and we were still in so-called la la land where we can still negotiate with them? In hindsight,
I
so
think that can be quite a long debate on its own itself. But
no, yeah,
I do.
but just a small perspective comparing Savarkar's perspective and perspective from the current discussion.
No, in that way, I think even Savarkar would be ready to make compromises. But
Is
uh,
it?
but in the standing with principles, just like Tilak did. But we will not stop music, but we'll slow down or play it more softer if you want. That's all.
Yes, understood. But the problem is that's why I raised the question that whether Savarkar and Tilak or anybody else, for that matter, from the Hindutva perspective, whether they really understood the enemy's mindset, their perspective, how the enemy is perceiving me, how I am perceiving them is something I can know. But do I know how the enemy is perceiving my actions, my activities?
I
Uh,
would think so, yes. Because but to anyone acting for with a purpose, they would have the first thing in their mind would be what is my purpose and my thing. What the other wants, that is secondary, and if it is a hindrance to my purpose, then I go against it.
Yeah, but if I give you the factual proof that from Ghori to Babar, correct?
Yeah, I
They are
understand, I
famous.
understand.
So, like,
But I'm
if
talking
our
in the context of the 18th, 19th century.
no, no, I understand that, but I am saying that our ancestors who faced those brutal attacks where from newborn babies were also put into fire. Okay, women, everything was burnt. Okay, everything was just destroyed. When you see an enemy behaving like that kind of ferocity, and you still expect that other side to come to a negotiation, did they really understood the enemy mindset? And is that something with that lacuna remained, and it is still reflected today or in 1800s?
may I speak on this?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So I think even if you anybody who has read the or actually, sorry, anybody who has listened to the paragraphs, you'll see that he is responding to those set of people who want the Hindus to be open, who want the Hindus to be placating, because they are our own people, they have the same blood and so on, the usual stuff which goes on. These were the arguments even given by MG Ranade and so on and so forth. Over here we see the difference that Tilak is rightfully justifying the actions which Hindus take in retaliation, which is, I will not say it openly, but you
Hmm,
know,
hmm, hmm,
they
hmm.
will they will give the reaction and the bloody reaction which is required at that time, and he will defend it because it is right, it is virtuous, it is justice. He will not shy away from it. So he, in this regard, he was not about giving up on our let's say our interests at all. He knew that the other party only understands that policy, so they will get that policy. They will not be gifted with harmony, brotherhood, and these sort of slogans. So yeah, that's my point, I guess. Tilak
Yeah,
on this
Nina,
issue was like,
Nina.
I agree with Rishi's views on that.
Hmm.
You can
But
continue.
Savarkar was correct, bit more hardline than Tilak. Like he had a
Yeah,
better, if you see in the degree, he was having a higher degree of Shatrubodh than Tilak, because Savarkar was very forthright in terms of that. Okay, we know who our enemy is, and we know what our demands are, and we are not going to back down on those, no matter what happens.
absolutely. He would be less compromising.
Example, oh yeah, like degree of compromise. We can phrase it that
Right,
way.
right.
Hmm.
also, by the way, we must remember this as well. So
Hmm.
at that time, if anybody reads like W. Hunter and so on, like Indian
Hmm.
Muslims, those books,
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
Muslims, many of the Muslims were not really Muslims, so they behaved in a very different way. This was the
Right,
time that
right.
they lived in. So the kind of Muslims suddenly they saw, like they were like, oh, what is this? So they need to be punished and so on and so forth. But at the large mass, they would see Muslims who are like in Bengal. They used to do Lokhi Puja in their home. Such kind of Muslims who had Muslim names but did Hindu practices. You had the same in Maharashtra. In Warkari Sampradaya, you had Sheikh Muhammad and so on. They were all Vitthal Bhaktas. They never uttered the foreign cult and so on. So this was the Vivek that they had to keep in mind while interacting with the other party. But like just because he has a Persian or Arabic name doesn't mean that he has to be like from the enemy faction. We'll have to see like what kind of practices he does, what kind of values does he have. If that is the case, then we will deal with them as such. Like they'll this kind of mindset Tilak had. That's what I've seen actually. Furthering study, further studying his complete works in Kesari, he addresses this a lot. You can maybe comment on it.
Yes. So I think we will finish our stream in about 10 minutes. So Rishi and Ninar, would you like to comment on this specific comment which came from Boishalidi? I think Rishi can give you the context. It is a little Bengali is there. So
Ochai Nam Cham Senapati. Even I don't know. Boshali, they could please translate this. Even I'm having problem.
So
But yeah, the
that will be
problem
fine.
with Hindus.
Filigree details. Yeah, yeah. Filigree
Filigree
details when you have
details will be
nothing. For first, grab power. The world is Abrahamic and hates you, and we are 100 years too late. So that's
yeah.
an interesting
I
comment.
mean,
But I think no, we're not like 100 years late or anything. But yeah, things are changing. You can say.
yeah, exactly. Uh, Also, Tilak was all about that, na? Nenar, you read that whole paragraph, right? The points about social reform. He says that political reform is the first thing that we must do instead of social reform. So he was all
Right.
about political power, gaining political power first, and Swaraj, Swaraj, Swaraj. He is all about that. First gain power, then
Because
we
on the
can do
other
everything
hand,
else.
when he was handing over social, the other people, right, the social reformers, they were asking the
Hmm.
British government to do social reform, and when they do social
Yeah,
reform with their kind of mindset, you can see that we are giving up our political power anyway.
exactly.
See,
Totally.
like
yes.
if we were
So
to convert to their kind of Christianity, we would go to their church in England and stuff.
yes, it is very important thing usually that this mentioned. So correct. So we have this kind of, and that's not a problem as such. Okay, this righteousness about that we have with us, correct, in terms of ideology, purity, and all those things, correct. But last question to all of you, and even to the guest as well. Okay, we have Munshi Shastri joining us. Despite all things stacked against us, we still prevailed. But at what cost? We
Yeah.
did prevail at
At what
what
cost?
cost? Okay. So if you see the numbers, it says, I don't remember the exact number, maybe 100 million Hindus were killed by the invaders. That number may be here and there, but 100 million Hindus were killed. Did we had to sacrifice all those people just to be fair to everybody? Is that the cost we want to bear? Yeah. So question to both of you and also to the audience itself. I forgot the question now. Okay.
Yeah, you'll
Or
have
the
to find
cost.
out the.
Yeah. So now I lost the chain of thought. Okay, I think Boishali is giving some really good things. We are busy discussing whether or not to correct for Bengalis to have meat during Navratri. My family's Durga Puja is non-veg. As at this rate, Hindus will be fasting 65 days a year just for Navratri. Okay, so now, yeah, okay, so we are. I got the question now. Very interesting question. Bachel is asking. Okay, my question was that there is a one strain of thought which says be practical in nature and grab power. Grab power by whatever means possible because the other side is not following rules. Why you should follow rules? And then do whatever you want. The other side says no, we have to follow some moral values, some rules, and then we will gradually grab power, and we will do it in a much more gradual, peaceful manner. Okay. So, what do you think? Which approach works, or do you think we need to blend both of them?
Rishi Aurobindo, in one of his articles in Bande Mataram, writes this approach of peacefully gaining power, like what the moderates used to do. Surendra Banerjee and Gopal Krishna Gokhale, he used to disparagingly call it as a baniya way of gaining power, where you try buying things instead of sacrificing anything. You try to do, oh, let me be in comfort. We will just do some negotiations. So okay, we'll get our deal with that. It will be easy and smooth and very comforting. Yeah, Aurobindo refuted that, and I'm also in agreement with that. You need to have this spirit of sacrifice, and for that you need to give up on many things.
Yeah,
What that may be,
we have M Shastri with us. Yes, please, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, couple of things I do want to state is that yes, we lost 100 million, right? But that's not a cost lost. It's more like a fact, right? We're still alive. We still remember them. But I think what's more important is that we take their memory forward. And the second thing is, I think we seriously need to have a rejuvenation, right? Like a revival, a rejuvenation. That is happening. I'm not saying that's not happening. But we really need to reinvest in that. The second thing is, I think we also need to build a framework because this is not a fight that we are fighting alone. Like, not even in Asia, right? So, once we have a framework, I'm pretty sure places like Singapore would gladly adopt them. They are also stuck in a similar problem. Japan's also kind of.
We are losing your voice, sir. M Shastri.
Just give me a moment, then go ahead.
Yeah. No issue, no issue. Yeah. So yeah, I think what M Shastri is saying is very pertinent and very good. Okay. That we are still alive, and that is something that we need to pay our homage to our ancestors. Okay. But one aspect which is we are not doing enough self-criticism of ourselves. We are, by appreciating that we are alive because of our ancestors, and we are not criticizing or doing self-criticism of ourselves to actually find out what went wrong. And by virtue of that, we are making the same mistakes over and over again, as we are reading that the same things are happening right now which was happening 100 years ago. So that is where my criticism lies. That we need to do bit more self-criticism, bit more analysis, and understand the other side better. Because if we understood the other side better, only then we could have actually done a better job. And now it is never late. It is never late. Anand, you can join the conversation. Go to the member section, go to the post section, community post, where you will find a community post with the link, and you can join the conversation if you want. So now, so the thing is, if we are doing a hard analysis, hard criticism of ourselves, understand the perspective, and then get data, and then we will be able to build the framework. If we have it, now we have the data, we have the Garstad book, which clearly defines what is your enemy's concept of enemy is. So until we align the same with our concept of enemy, then we will not be able to fight the enemy in an efficient way.
Yeah, I mean, this is why a revival is also important, right? We have to be cognizant of one thing is that you uh, you have to separate the ideology from the people. Well, you have to disconnect the two things. Unless you do that, you won't have a revival. That and that kind of framework only we can build. You can't get that from Gadsar's book or anything like that because, I mean, while he explains really well about what is suicidal empathy, how you should basically take things seriously based on what people say, right? How they practice and how open-ended their goals are, and etc. etc. Um, it, his solutions or any solution that he proposes will only work in that framework of that Western society. It will never work in our framework. So it is still incumbent on us to build a framework that works for us, that is that kicks a cycle that maybe in 30, 40, maybe 100 years, that we have a complete decolonization going on.
Absolutely, I agree with you. But do you think, from your perspective, how many people would have read the God's book and understood the updated concept or the info he has given so that we can update our perspectives?
I think that's irrelevant, right? Like, how many people have read Savarkar's work? Very few. How many people have heard about Savarkar's work? Oh, plenty more, right? So I think while reading and all is great, what's more important is being a propagator of all these ideas. Being essentially, we also have to be pracharaks.
But that we are doing, actually. In some way, we are doing the same.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm not saying we are not doing that, but I mean, it should be implicitly assumed that, oh, we are doing this, but we need to do more. We need to get more people, and we need to build a broader movement.
Yeah, it is happening. It is happening because, like, unlikely people like us, right, doing something which I would not have been I would not imagine doing this 6 months ago. That we are doing this, so it is something to cherish. And one thing which, like, we all need to understand is that it is never too late to do anything. Okay,
Yeah,
if you start
yeah,
today, if you start today, start start today. It doesn't really matter when you open your eyes. So never be in the state that nothing is going to work and we are not going to succeed. Okay. Whether you
yeah.
succeed or not doesn't really matter. You need to put in your work, what you need to do.
If you don't try, it will always be a 100% failure.
Exactly. But yes, a lot of things are happening. A lot of things are happening at individual level. Slowly, it is being coalescing. Okay, but this political thing, which we need to fix it, because this political and policy, I think Shastri knows more about it, the policy part. This policy and politics, it needs an urgent look at it, because this is something, if we can fix it, we can accelerate the change much faster. What do you think, Shastri?
Um, I'm going to put it simply so, right? Like, I've seen this firsthand in the US. So, people in the US don't wait for politics. Uh, they just have policies all around, and politics is the moment, is the right time for you to implement policies, right? So we should not hesitate to have policies on our hand. We should not hesitate to do the research. We should not hesitate to do the groundwork as well, right? But when the political opportunity comes, we should not hesitate to execute, and that is something that we need to work on, right? Like, the Sangh has done some of this work partially, but I think it's upon others not within the Sangh fold who share the same objectives to do so as well.
Yeah, some think tanks need to do a lot of work. Anand, please open your mic.
Hi. Now, audio coming?
Yeah, audio is coming. Audio is coming. You can speak.
Okay. Because I'm just using my desktop today. I'm not using my laptop like normally. So I think that we are not thinking multidimensionally. The problem is that there's only one, what do you call it, guiding idea that's currently in the Hindu ecosystem is the traditional Hindutva idea that you just bring towards all castes. But that will not be achieved until you have a, how to say, multi-pronged way to handle each panth uniquely. So each panth has its own requirements to join a larger cause, right? You cannot just bring removal of caste narratives to maybe an ISKCON person, because an ISKCON person is like, we don't talk about caste anyways. We just are bhakti worship. We bring white people into it. So where is that discourse? Right, that what do you call it? Non-Indian Hindus want to be part of the movement, the global Hindutva movement, right? That is not there. I mean, I think some Sangh does a little bit of it. I think during the World Hindu Congress they did a little bit of that. I saw that a bit. I think that's spearheaded more by other organizations that are not primarily the Sangh. The second thing is, what about traditional mutts? Like, they don't get regularly talked to by the Sangh. I don't see that, at least, right? You take, for example, the temple freedom movement in the south. Like, the Sangh doesn't do regular like discussions about that. Or forget about the Sangh. I focus on the Sangh too much because they have their own priorities. I'm saying the general Hindutva movement, which is all over India, they don't focus on the needs of each region. And each region has unique needs. It's not just one single idea. So, for example, right now, you can get a lot of Hindu groups together in the south if you just focus on temple freedom. But for that, you need a framework, how the temple freedom movement will work without being targeted for caste discrimination, which I think it's not being done enough of, my opinion. Everything's being put on the back burner. What do you think? I think it's on a back burner.
M. Sastri, you want to shed some light on this, because I think you have a much better idea than me, but I will also share mine as well. I think M. Sastri is in mute.
Just go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I think it's an issue. No, so let me just give you some more context, right? So I was watching an interview with, I think it's a discussion about the current AIDMK saying that they will give patta to all the encroachers in temple lands. And they're framing it as what do you call it, social justice.
What is it?
Patta means basically your
land right. And
a lot of people are encroaching onto temple lands, right? And the AIDMK, an ally of the BJP, is saying they will give patta. Now the BJP is framing as like, oh, if the government wants to give, they should give, but they can't take it. They can't take temple land. Like, it's not very clear. It's not saying we will not allow encroachment onto temple land. Like, if you ask a Muslim person, right, and a Muslim party like AIMIM, they will say we will not allow any encroachment onto Waqf land. It's very clear. I don't care about social justice. I care that is Islamic land. You ask a Christian, they will say, no, I will not allow any foreign encroachment onto non-Christian encroachment onto Christian land. I don't care how poor they are. We will give if you want. The church will give poor people if we want. But the state cannot take our land and give. So this is my problem with the BJP generally. They're not very clear. So if you want to be truly secular, and this, I believe secularism is very useful in this way. It's like the state cannot interfere into religious affairs. Means religious people have a, independent way of handling things. So if they want to give donations, they want to give charity, they give it via the religious institutions. The state should not be the one doing it. Because there are taxpayers who don't want to contribute to that. But there are taxpayers who want to contribute to that, right?
Anand, I will just pause you just to see. The secularism, the secular state is a construct, and that construct is against Christian church. So by definition, by structure, okay, the secular state as we envision, which was France, it's always going to be suppress the religions or the cultural practices, because that is how it is drafted by principle.
No, but that is not true in practice, because you take, for example, the UK, right? UK is defined as a secular state. At least they frame it as a secular state. But there, the state runs Christianity as its major religious body. So basically, the state is run by Christians. basically run by the church via the queen, even though they have a democratic government. You see what I'm saying, right?
Hmm, hmm,
There,
hmm, hmm,
the French form of secularism is not the one that's adopted around the world.
hmm,
The French form is a very unique form. It's extremely detached form. Even in France, for example, the Notre Dame Cathedral was given money to be rebuilt. Why
hmm.
would a secular state do that? So I'm not saying secularism the way you think. I'm saying in Tamil Nadu, for example, why is the state involved in temple affairs at all? Right? The religious people should be managing their affairs on their own. Social organizations can contribute to the discussion, but the religious people must handle religious affairs. And the BJP is not speaking up for this concept, because you don't see, like I said, no, AIM is not saying, oh, okay, fine, let the state manage my mosque or my Waqf land. They're pushing back against it, or many Muslim groups saying the same thing. Why are Hindu groups not saying, I'm sorry, we can handle our issues ourselves? See, that's where the confidence comes from. You handle your issues, you succeed in uplifting people, you succeed in removing casteism in a region where you have full control of your affairs. You literally prove to the world that you don't need the state to prevent you from building connections, and automatically these caste divisions go away. But the more you involve the state, the more politicians will take advantage of it to keep the society divided. That's my point.
Yes,
You have no practical example of the state being hands off and then people on their own removing this from their society. That's the problem.
yeah, and that problem exists. The primary reason being is that the common Hindu doesn't really care about it, because there is no give and take. Correct. If today the temples are under government, correct, everything is been provided by the state. Okay. Now the relationship between a common Hindu is between state and the Hindu. Correct. Hindu is not getting any benefits or not getting anything bad, both ways. Okay. If you go to temple, nothing will happen. If you don't go to temple, nothing will happen. If the temple is there, it is there. It is not doing anything visibly that they care about. It's about incentives. If today, if we had temples free and temples were running, hospitals, schools, other institutions, and the state comes and, no, I will take over, everybody who benefited from that from that charity would come and say, no, you cannot do that. That's why nobody cares about it. Yeah.
So that's my point. You literally hit the nail on the head. My point is, if you do not create a system where this can happen, the state will always control the temple. So my point is, at least in a state where you actually have, so in Tamil Nadu, for example, you actually have a nice what do you call it, binary that you can fight with, but they're not stepping into that binary and not taking advantage of that binary. I mean, they do a little
Yeah.
bit once in a while, but they're not committing completely. That's my problem.
Correct. So now the why it is happening, because it's politics. Politics, because in UP, Yogi Adityanath can do this because they have the political power and the numbers to actually do it. In Tamil Nadu or in southern regions, they don't have the enough political power to actually do that. Maybe that's my assumption. Shastri, you can comment on the Anand's point.
I completely agree with him on a lot of ways, right? Like, um, the but I just have a different thing, right? We shouldn't wait for the political movement, or like, to put it this way, right? I think we have a tendency of waiting for politics to change and then developing policies. I'm saying we should do the opposite. We should have policies in hand, not wait for the politics to change, but when it changes, we should just roll it out as quickly as possible, right? Because if we don't do that, then we'll keep on missing opportunities after opportunities after opportunities, right? Like, for example, like Modi 2, complete missed opportunity. We spent too much time just developing policies when we should have done that in Modi 1. And when he came back in power with a larger mandate, we should have simply rolled it out, right? So I think that thinking needs to change, and it needs to happen at the for everything, whether it's temple freedoms or some other issue.
or secularism or anything else. Like we have to build that policy corpus, and we just simply give it over to the politicians and say, go with it. ये हम लोग ने पूरा स्टडी करके रखा है, कौन स्टेक होल्डर्स है, कौन प्लेयर्स है, उनकी क्या क्या है. I mean, in that sense, we have to be ruthless. I think like there's a lot to learn from the West, and this is one thing that we should definitely learn from the West.
Yes, building institutions which have credibility, which are like well designed, and they are putting out good policies
Uh,
associated and connected to people.
no. We are falling into the trap of credentialism. So
Hmm,
let me give you a more recent example, right?
hmm.
Trump got elected in 2014. Sorry, not 2014, 2024, right?
Yeah.
The moment he became president, he completely dismantled the DEI state, right? I mean, he's basically given it a body blow.
Hmm.
That body blow could not have happened if it weren't for people like Christopher Rufo, and other folks from a not so well-known institute called the Manhattan Institute. The thing is, they had an objective in mind. They created an institute. ये ध्यान नहीं दिया कि it's well established, it's well credentialed, and nothing. Yeah, I mean the Sangh also does this to some extent, but I think they've lost the momentum to do it further, right? Uh, uh, so we need to be in that same mindset in the sense that policy dalo, internet pe dalo, make it popular, make it feasible. So when the political opportunity comes, it's just a flip switch, right? We're not trying to beat the state into doing what we elected them to do.
No, I
Yeah,
do.
Anand.
So I do agree. But again, this will only be done by organizations that have large followings. So imagine today, me and Munshi sat together, me and Shasi sat together, or you, Nava, we all sat together, and we started drafting a system where, like each temple is able to manage its resources with and being able to provide for the community around it, who are the bhaktas, right? And they're able to create a system where they're providing with the donations. Not only are you doing your danam to the deity, you're also providing enough to contribute to the development of the area region, right? Now the question is, how do we so you see, like Tamil Nadu has this issue: small temples that don't have enough bhaktas in the region to maintain the quality, right? But there are big temples that have way more bhaktas traveling from all over the world, all over the country, to this particular temple. Now the thing is, if few of us sat together and designed what do you call it, monetary method to transfer this thing. What happens tomorrow if some bhakta, maybe from another region, more bhaktas are coming from Karnataka, for example, and they're like, I'm sorry, we want more stake in the decision making of this temple. Now, how does that policy decision change there? That's the problem. Now, this is where the government needs to come in and say, this is the way we will allow you to adapt. Because, see, no matter what we write, ultimately, authority flows from the state. Unfortunately, authority flows from the state. Unless, of course, you segregate authority completely. So, for example, you look in the West, right? You look at churches in the West. How do they have authority? The state has no authority on churches, literally. So a church can live or die based on its people who come and go. So tomorrow, a church maybe have like initially 50 congregants. Over time, it becomes 10. Then they're like 2 or 3 old people. They die off. And the church is forced to close. And then it may be converted into a mosque or a temple. Because that's what's happening in the US right now. Lots of churches are becoming temples. So my point is, you have to choose between the two. You have to either choose that the state provides you a framework where you can adapt to the changing times, or you allow each group or each section to fail or succeed depending on how the bhaktas come, which is a dangerous thing for old temples that are not being take Hampi, for example. Okay, I've recently read Hampi, and Hampi has we have the ability to rebuild Hampi into an active temple complex if we want, but we are not, because we look at it as something that we can't invest in. The problem is that, so the state has to invest in it, and the state has only incentive as much as tourism is there. And even the tourism there is like, they don't want to invest in such a way that they can make it. So for example, the amount of effort you have to put to make it really beautiful compared to how much you can just make money from just basic tourism, there's a big gulf between that. So you'd invest a lot more to make it look perfect, and a lot less just to make it touristy, and then you get a lot of money out of it. So that's what's happening right now. Hindu places of worship, that's what's happening right now. But Muslims don't see it that way. They put all their money, even if it's a defunct. Like Babri was a khandar. It was not even a mosque. It was just a ruin. But they put so much effort into it, so much money and effort into it, because for them it's an idea. It's not just the money out of the place. So that needs to change at some level, and that can only be done by leaders. It cannot be done by a handful of people sitting discussing these things. That's my point.
No, I don't disagree. Leaders should lead, but I think leaders also need a platform, right? Like they need policy. They need people to do some of the. See, leaders only have 24 hours. वो भी कितना करेगा, right? So on, and the other thing is, I think this is where you and I differ in a minor sense. You say the government should provide something. I'm just saying we should just tell the government this is what you need to do, right? And that can only happen when there's that political opportunity, and we should be ready for that. So
I get that. I get that. But you know why I see there's a problem here? Because for me, Hindus are even scared to start, because they think that the minute they start, political pressures will target them. You see the problem here, right? Like, imagine tomorrow if I were to propose, right?
See, that's all cope, to be honest, right? We should not be afraid. I mean, we should stop being afraid.
Okay.
And it starts with us, right? So it's not, we're not dealing with structural issues in the sense that there's like a real oppressive secret police that will really oppress us, right? But rather it's more inside us itself, right? We are just afraid of being vocal about things that we care about because of some imaginary, maybe not even imaginary, but like, for some potential negative issue that might befall us. Right? I mean, if that were the case, then we would not have people like Tilak, Agarkar. I mean, none of the social revolutionaries would even be a thing, right? So that's that fundamental thing that somebody will come after us is basically a cope and a fear, and that's not structured. I don't think we should basically like figure out a way to solve that and all that. I'm going to make the great sin of quoting Gandhi, because he's relevant in this actually. He's sort of you can say whatever you want about the guy, but वो भी जो बोलता है उस पे भी बहुत सच्चाई है, right? You be the change you want the world to be. So माने कि you have to start with yourself, then you can expect the world to change. So I've committed my grave sin. So
no, I don't think just because Gandhi said that someone else would not have said it before. So I believe that most of the things Gandhi said, someone already said.
Yeah, precisely.
We just don't know about them because the British didn't prop them up.
Right. So I think like the homework here is, I think we all should start doing some homework as well. Is that we're stuck on temple freedoms, right? Let's come out with policy papers on temple freedoms. मैं एक लिखता हूँ, श्रीधर और एक लिखने दे.
I will be नहीं हमारे पास ऑलरेडी एक पॉलिसी है, मतलब correct we had the Bengali stream with Prajashakti party. Okay, so Prajashakti party has a detailed policy on Hindu code bill. Okay, and I have seen that with the document itself. We'll be having a discussion on that. So they have actually, see, I may not, may not agree with that thing, naming other things. The contents which are there in that specific policy paper, as a political party was made it, okay, that has a lot of things that we are discussing now. So
Mm.
I think we will read that policy document in full, and we will also have the individual come to explain those things in context, and that could be a good beginning to, and that comes from a registered political party, okay, and their policy document, okay. So that is a good beginning. We will try to do the stream next week, where we'll have the document. I'll summarize it, and then the person will come and give information, explanation how this is happening and how it helps a lot of issues that we have today.
Mm. Mm. But again, this document may work for the region around Bengal, but may not work for.
It doesn't really see, no, it doesn't really matter. See, we are starting this conversation itself. Like
Okay.
I might write something, so we already have something which is written. Let's start with that and let's
Correct.
discuss it.
Right. And the other thing I do want to do is like we need to think in terms of tactics and strategy, right? I'm fairly convinced that we should lay the seeds for a Hindu Rajya, not just stop at Rashtra. So that means we need to definitely Hinduize the state. That's one thing. But also we need to Hinduize some of the state's value. Uh, Nothing stops us from defining secularism with Hindu characteristics. So that's also another thing that we should think about.
So we have two homeworks.
Yes.
Yeah, Shastri, you write something on it. I think we have the discussion on the presentation, so we'll take time and do that on a weekend.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. It's just that I'm not a great writer. I have a lot of writer's block, so I need to get through it. Probably next weekend is when I'll have the time to do so. I'll
No,
probably
you
like
can.
start writing now.
No, you can give me the draft even. Okay, so I have people who can finish it for you.
Oh,
Like
okay, sweet.
I have people who are authors who have written books. Okay, so I can
Yeah.
take their help, give the draft to them. They can maybe put it in a much more sophisticated manner. Maybe they can talk to you and get it in a way which is much more presentable in terms of language and sophistication.
Anyway, I think it's getting late for everybody, so I'll
Okay.
stop talking too.
Yeah. Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you, Niner, and Rishi has already went to sleep.
No, one last thing. Can I just
Go ahead. Go
not?
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
deviated to the temple feeding thing. I apologize,
Sure.
because from my perspective, that is a very clear, easy to. It's a targetable thing to get done, because it's a policy thing. No, my discussion about you're talking about Savarkar and Tilak and stuff, right?
Tilak.
To me, while they understood the needs of society at the time, they were not able to understand the idea, how to say, the ideation of how to achieve their goals in terms of managing the Christian or the Muslim. They assumed that the group will accept the identity of the local culture without being interested in the culture of the lands from where the religion came, which has been proven to be false, because takes a small amount of push for them to want to go towards that direction. Like you look at both Christians and Muslims, right? It just takes a small push, propaganda push, for them to completely change their entire culture. Because I think someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Rishi, you mentioned, or someone else mentioned, that for a long time, Muslims in India did not practice what you call conservative style of Islam. But
Rishi
it just
mentioned. Rishi mentioned that. Rishi.
correct. It requires a small push, though, just a small guilt tripping, saying if you don't wear the full burqa, you are committing shirk. And they basically convert large groups of people from becoming unorthodox to becoming orthodox. That's the danger of not facing this reality. And I think lots of people, lots of thinkers did not face this reality, and they still don't, in my opinion.
Yes. Okay. I think that is good enough. And we will continue the discussion next week. We'll have a stream maybe next week as well. So thank you everybody for joining. Rishi, Nina, Shastri, and Anand, everybody. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.